You wake from a dream where you are barefoot on a train platform, holding a birthday cake that keeps melting, while the announcement boards spell your name wrong over and over. You sit up, heartbeat quick, and wonder whether this was random static or some kind of coded message hiding in frosting and steam. Freud thought the second answer was closer to the truth, and he built a provocative theory on that intuition. He proposed that dreams are disguised wish fulfillments, not always pleasant wishes, but often conflicted ones, bent out of shape by the mind's internal sensors. He distinguished between manifest content, the dream as remembered the next morning, and latent content, the underlying thoughts and wishes that fed it from the night before. The disguise, he argued, is crafted through mechanisms that transform difficult meaning into tolerable scenes without waking us. Condensation squeezes several ideas into one image, like a face that looks a little like your mother, a little like your boss, and somehow exactly like neither. Displacement shifts emotional weight from a central figure to a safer object, so your rage at a friend becomes irritation at an elevator, or a melted cake stands in for a fading relationship. Secondary revision is the morning editor that smooths the dream into a story, papering over gaps so it sounds coherent enough to tell, even if the logic still wobbles. These mechanisms make the dream speak in riddles, which is why it feels both strangely meaningful and maddeningly slippery when you try to explain it over coffee. Modern science has asked a different set of questions, peering at sleep stages and brain rhythms to see what the night is doing behind closed eyes. We now talk about REM and non-REM cycles, about 90 minutes each, that move through the night like waves, with REM bringing vivid, emotionally charged dreams for many people. Researchers describe how the sleeping brain consolidates memory, integrates what we learned, and helps regulate emotion by calming some fear centers while replaying experience in altered form. Alan Hobson, ES activation synthesis hypothesis, argued that dreams are the brain ES attempt to make sense of random neural firing, weaving a story from noisy signals without deep hidden motives. Others, like Mark Solms, note that damage to certain feeling and motivation circuits reduces dreaming, suggesting that drives, emotion, and the urge to seek might be central ingredients rather than background static. This leaves us with a fertile debate. Are dreams meaning, function, creativity, or a blend of all three depending on the night and the dreamer's life? Let's look through the first lens, dreams as meaning, and try Freud's method at a human scale. Instead of trying to decode the dream like a puzzle book, he asked people to free associate from each element, speaking whatever comes to mind without censorship or polish. Take a mundane dream. You are late to a meeting, doors keep closing, and your phone displays a calendar full of overlapping events shaped like traffic cones. At breakfast, you list your associations: missing your grandfather's funeral years ago, the tightening feeling when your partner asks about moving, and an old memory of waiting outside a teacher's office. You notice a pull to avoid conflict by running late or staying vague, and you realize the dream points toward a conversation you keep postponing because you fear the fallout. The wish is not simply to be late. It is to be spared a confrontation you dread, and the dream lets you feel the anxiety while half granting the wish to avoid it. Meaning here is not a universal code. It is a personal map where your images link to your life, and two people with the same dream may walk to very different places. Freud sometimes overstated the universality of symbols, but his method of following your own associations remains surprisingly revealing when approached with patience and curiosity. It matters that you are the author and the reader, because your images borrow from your history more than from any dictionary. To see his approach in action, consider a famous case from his book, the dream known as Irma's injection. He had been worrying about a patient named Irma, whose symptoms he felt he had not fully relieved. And one night he dreamed of examining her, finding a diagnosis that shifted blame to others. In the dream, colleagues appear, technical details pile up, and the conclusion seems to absolve him of guilt, revealing a wish to be exonerated for an imperfect cure. He interpreted it as a compromise between responsibility and relief, a narrative that let him sleep by tilting the scales toward innocence. Scholars have debated the details for decades, But the core illustrates the point. The dream staged a wish tinged with conflict and guilt, disguised in medical scenery. Now shift to the second lens, dreams as function, and listen to what sleep science contributes without drowning us in jargon. When we enter REM sleep, the brain areas linked to vivid imagery and emotion become more active, while parts responsible for deliberate control and rational planning quiet down. This mix may allow us to repackage emotional memories, cooling their sting while preserving their lessons, like moving a fragile vase into a padded box so it can be stored safely. Night after night, the brain rehearses and files experiences, integrating them into a larger story so we can move through the day with a steadier mood. Some studies show that people remember new material better after sleep, especially when it is woven into existing knowledge, suggesting that dreams might help knit new threads into an old fabric. Other work finds that sleep can soften the sharp edges of fear responses, which is why nightmares often follow stressful events and may fade as we heal. Under this lens, dreams need not be coded messages to be useful. They can simply be the feeling brain doing its nightly maintenance and emotional bookkeeping. Yet function and meaning can overlap, because even maintenance has a style, and the images it uses are drawn from our most charged concerns. Let's add the third lens, dreams as creativity. The often told but still delightful stories of problems solved at 2 in the morning. An engineer struggles for days with a design snag, a bracket that twists under load despite every reinforcement, and finally gives up for the night. In a vivid dream, they see the device rotated 90 degrees, with stress diffusing along a curve rather than a straight line, and they wake with a clear picture in mind. Later that day, sketch in hand, they test the change and watch the numbers fall into range, relieved and slightly amazed by the brain's nocturnal workshop. Artists speak in similar terms, melodies arriving on a pillow, color palettes emerging from a scene that never existed, and personal insights landing with the authority of a whisper that finally made sense. These stories do not prove that dreams are mystical. They show that the relaxed logic of sleep can free the mind to try combinations it would otherwise forbid. A fair critique must follow because no single theory owns the night, and Freud's daring was matched by moments of overreach. He generalized from a narrow cultural world, sometimes forcing Victorian assumptions about sexuality and authority onto dreams whose meanings may have been more varied and less dramatic. He underestimated how idiosyncratic dream imagery is, and how easily interpreters can import their own fantasies or biases into someone else's story. Alan Hobson's view reminds us that the brain is noisy during sleep, and not every image deserves analysis. Sometimes the mind is simply weaving from spare parts. Mark Solms and others counter that the presence of drives and effect suggests dreams have psychological business to conduct, even if the plot is partly improvised. The balanced view holds tension. Dreams can serve functions, spin surprises, and reveal meaning through personal association. Yet any single dream might be a collage without a deep script. What matters is the stance you take, not the certainty you claim, because curiosity can open doors that dogma slams. If you want a simple and safe practice, keep a notebook by your bed, or use your phone's voice memos if that works better. When you wake, give the dream a quick title, like melting cake at the station, and note the first feelings you remember, whether amusement, dread, or relief. Write 3 associations, short and honest, what each key image reminds you of in your own life, not in a book, and include private links you would not say at work. During the week, look for recurring themes rather than single keys like repeated settings, repeated dilemmas, or the same emotion in different costumes. Notice especially when dreams rehearse difficult conversations, navigate losses, or play back a conflict at a safe distance. The staging can hint at what your waking mind wants to practice. If nothing comes, that is fine. The point is not to force meaning, but to leave a channel open so that meaning can drift in when it is ready. One caution bears repeating. Dream dictionaries can be playful, but they are not universal codes, and treating them as such can drown out your own voice. Another mistake is ignoring the emotional tone, because the feeling often points more directly to meaning than the images themselves. A third misstep is assuming every dream must be profound. Many are shorts and trailers, and their value is cumulative rather than spectacular. Return to the platform with the melting cake, and imagine exploring it now with these tools and this balanced posture. You might link the wrong name on the board to a recent misstep at work, the barefoot feeling to vulnerability, and the melting frosting to a deadline slipping away. You might also see a wish to escape a celebration you did not want, or a wish to be recognized for a version of yourself that no longer fits. These are not final answers. They are starting points for more honest conversations with yourself and, when wise, with someone you trust. The history of Freud's Irma injection reminds us that wishes and guilt can share the same stage, and that accountability and self-forgiveness often need to be negotiated, not declared. The nightly theater is roomy enough for meaning, maintenance, and creativity, and the same dream can carry all three if you look from different seats. Picture that theater now. The mind as playwright drafting scenes from scraps, stagehand moving props in the dark, and audience reacting with gasps, laughter, and a sudden understanding that grows in the silence. The costumes are borrowed from yesterday, the script is revised by feeling, and the curtain rises without your permission, because the show is part of how you stay human. When you wake, you are both reviewer and cast, able to decide what notes to keep and what scenes to let go. Some mornings the play will be nonsense and you will smile and move on, but other mornings a single line will echo all day and nudge a change you were ready to make. You do not need to choose sides in the dream debate to benefit from your own, because you can be agnostic about theory, while attentive to experience. Ask yourself what last night's scene was rehearsing, what fear it was soothing, or what daring it was inviting you to attempt. Maybe the cake was a deadline, maybe a celebration you feared, or maybe it was simply your mind cooling emotion into image, so it could be carried without burning your hands. Either way, you are closer to yourself when you listen, and closer still when you let that listening influence one small action today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Dreams may not tell us what to think, but they help us notice what we most need to face, which is their quiet way of showing the road.